Socket IO. This is honestly the most requested topic on our channel by far. So what happened was we created a small 50-second video which we shared on YouTube and Instagram, and you guys on Instagram went crazy and you loved that video, and most of you were requesting a full-on tutorial on it, and there you go. I'm here delivering on our promise and bringing this tutorial to you, which will go from the very basics to advanced. It will also show you what sockets are, exactly when to use them, and how to use them using a client and a server. In this case, the client is an Angular application, but if you're using React or any other front-end framework, even if vanilla JavaScript, if you're interested in that, the logic and the fundamentals remain the same. So do not worry about it. Whatever you're using, you'll be able to work with our example today. Now, I just want to quickly show you what we'll be building today together so that you have an idea of what this video will be about. Let's go here, and this is an email app, a very basic. My goal is not here to build an email app, but to explain how sockets actually work. So what I'm going to do is I have three users, Felix, Ada, and Julian. These are randomly generated usernames, and I have a randomly generated email message. Whenever I click here, nothing happened on this screen, but let me go to the other two users and see if they received my email or not. And there you go. From Felix, we have a random text email, and this one received as well. Now we are Julian now. On this screen, this is Julian. Let's send an email and see what happens. There you go, from Julian, and again from Julian. So that's the power of sockets. The client in this case doesn't even know when to request to the server. Right? Usually when we have been working with mobile phones or web applications, we have a habit of making sure the client requests every single thing from the server, right? We have API request or GraphQL, doesn't matter. What happens is client initiates a request, goes to the server, gets data back, shows it in the front end. That is what we have been living with until now. But in applications like a chat system, email system, and many other scenarios, how does the client know when it's going to receive any message, right? There can be a notification sent from the server, right? How does the client know when to react? Does the client have to request the server for information every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds, or every 30 seconds? All these scenarios are very wasteful because we'll be wasting a lot of API requests, and they are also not the best, because what if the message comes and we see it after 30 seconds because our API request was after every 30 seconds, right? So it's definitely not ideal, very lethargic, and we are wasting a lot of resources, which as developers, we always want to avoid. And that's the goal of using Socket IO. That's the reason for using Socket IO. And there are many other technologies, don't get me wrong, it's not the best, but it's one of the ways in which server can send a message to the client without the client even requesting something. So imagine, let's say you have a chat system or an email system. The client won't be requesting server every few seconds. The server will automatically send a message to the client whenever that client is expecting a message to be received. Isn't that awesome? So all kind of push notifications, chat systems, emails, alerts sent from the server, all these things could be handled with Socket IO. Now enough talking, let's go to the code and start building this app from scratch. Also, before I forget, all the code shown in this video would be shared with a GitHub repository in the link in the description below. So go ahead and check that out if you need. And while you do that, if you're going to the description below, remember to hit the like and subscribe button while you're at it. All right, going to my server side, all I've used over here is a Node-RED package to just keep my app running. And this is the main one, Socket IO. All you have to do is go to your terminal and write npm i socket.io. Whatever feature you're using, whatever version you want to use, depends on that. But this is where we start. Now, let's go ahead and set up our server properly. I've just imported the Faker.js library. This is not related to Socket.io. This is a very nice tool though. If you're interested, check it out. It will help us generate random names, addresses, email messages, etc., whatever you want. So it's very useful in testing small features. All right, so what I want to do is I just want to start using my server.js library. So I'm going to write constant io equals to new server. This comes from the Socket.io library that I've already downloaded. Hope you're doing the same. Now, next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to say on. So when the connection establishes, so on connection, these are different events we can listen to. There's a connection event, disconnect event, etc. You can read more about that on the documentation itself. That's the best way to learn. But this video has a goal to explain to you and get you kickstarted using this library. And once the connection is established, we get the socket callback. And over here, I can just go and say console.log connected. So when our client runs and it actually connects with our server, this connected log should be printed out. First of all, I'm going to start my server now, just to see if I have any errors or not. I'm going to remove myself so that you can look at the terminal as well for now. For now, it looks good. We haven't really set up a client, and I'm going to do that next. All right, now quickly glancing over my client, I have downloaded this library, ngx socket IO. As I said, I'm using Angular, but if you're using any other client, I've said this before, shouldn't matter. The code and the logic and the knowledge behind it is exactly the same. Do not worry about it. These are just wrappers that work with the socket IO library, right? So this is socket IO on the top. Then we can have React, Angular, Vanilla, Vue. All these have their own implementation so that Angular can understand how socket IO works. React can understand how socket IO works, right? But it essentially is just a module for socket IO. As you can see here, it just goes back to the socket IO original library that we started using initially. Now, once we have downloaded that, we have to do a little bit of setup. So let me go over that and show you what exactly I've done. Now in my module, I have done some basic setup for socket IO to work with Angular. First of all, we have added the import of socket IO module and I've passed a configuration to it. Now in the configuration, we can add a URL. This is basically the URL of the server where the server is going to be connected and listening to our socket. This is most of the times we can use port 3000. We'll soon configure that. And here are some additional options you can add. But because I'm giving you a basic introduction, it's not really needed as of now. If you are actually building a live production application, you might want to go over the documentation to learn more about it. Now, what should be the URL? I usually like to write the URL as, using the port 3000 and where is it actually reading from? It is reading from the server side. So I'm going back to my server and I'm going to say io.listen. And here we can pass a port. I'm going to pass a 3000 port. If it doesn't work for you, just use another number and most likely it will work for you. There we go, saving it, going back. So over here, I can simply go ahead and add HTTP localhost 3000. And this should do the trick. Let's go here. Let's go to my app module. Now in my app module, nothing is working right now. I just have the UI. If I click on it, nothing will happen. No other client is going to receive any email. We are starting from scratch. I just have the UI ready to save some time. This is Delpha, this is Bradley. I'm giving them random names every time we start, and I'm achieving this with the help of Faker library. As I already said, we can get first name, last name, addresses, whatever you want. Very, very convenient when you're testing something. All right. Now we need to make sure that we are actually connected. This is where a lot of you will waste time if you don't set up things properly. So we don't see the console log connected over here. So something might be wrong. Let's see if something is there on the console. No errors. So what do you think might be the issue here? Well, the issue is that we haven't really imported socket IO into our constructor. Whenever you are using Angular, you need to import obviously the package that you are interested in. So I'm going to say private socket, and there you go. Now, no errors in our file. Everything looks perfect. Let's go to the client and oh no, we have an error now on the client side. What does it say? It says that we have an error. We are not able to connect because we are blocked by CORS policy. Now, I showed you this error intentionally because this is again a point where a lot of people waste time. We always will get CORS error when trying to connect with socket. So what we need to do is, we need to go back to our server and we have to add what client is allowed. So we have to say if the client is from this address, allow it. Basically giving it the CORS property and giving it an origin, and our origin is going to be exactly where our Angular app runs. So I'm just going to copy this and go here, paste. This should ideally do the trick. Let's see if this actually works. I'm going to refresh one more time. And there you go. No errors, looking good. Let's go back. And here you go. We have the connected log here finally. And now our CORS has been successfully fulfilled and our connection between client and the server has been successfully established. Now let's go on and learn the real thing. Now, obviously socket comes with a lot of features, but what I'm interested in is for now, for the server to be able to send a message to the clients. That's what I'm interested in, and let's try to build that. So whenever we send a message, there are two things that a socket can do. It can send or emit an event, and it can read or listen to an event. And on the client side, obviously, we are going to listen for now. On the server side, we are going to do the sending for now. So let's implement that and see how it works. So on the client side, I'm going to say this dot socket dot from event. So here I'm listening to the event, and this is the name of my event, right? I have to say new email, and this can be anything. This can be notification, this can be email, message, XYZ, whatever you want. Just make sure you're sending to the same string. This is name of our event. And when we go to the server side, we have to make sure this name exactly matches what we are using on the server. Moving on, I'm going to subscribe to it. For now, I'm simply going to go here and print it out. Console.log email. Now, before I go to my browser again, I have to also send an event from the server. So let's go and implement that. I'm back in the video. So on the server side, I'm simply going to go here and say socket.emit. Emit is how you send events, how you emit events so that others can listen to it. Over here, I'm going to say a new email, and simply for now, I'm just going to send check email. A very simple message just to make sure if it works or not. Let's refresh. Check email. All right, so we received what the server sent. The client did not request anything. That's the beauty of course, right? The client did not request anything, but the server did send us a message. So that's good. We have a good start here. Now what I'm going to do is, instead of just sending something like this, I'm going to go here. I'm going to send, a proper email. At least have a sender and a message. So I'm going to say sender is server. I'm going to use my faker library here. So faker.get.commit message. I'm going to send a random commit message as an email just for testing purposes. Let's go back. Let's refresh. There you go. We have a sender and we have a message. All I have to do now is just to show the message being printed out, I'm just going to add this to my email array. There you go. If I go back, refresh, there you go. I have a message from the server being printed out gracefully. Awesome. We are able to send a message from the server now to the client, and it gracefully prints out every time we receive something. Now, for now, we're just receiving a message once. If you're working on an actual application, you might have some logic. For example, whenever you have a new feature out, you might want to send a notification to all your browsers, all your clients with browsers on, that, hey, we have a new feature. Do you want to test it out? Something like that, right? So there can be many use cases. Also, let's make it a little more interesting. I'm going to say every 5 seconds, the server should send an event. I'm going to use the set interval, and over here, let's say 5 seconds. I'm going to move this inside my set interval method. So now what should ideally happen is every 5 seconds, I should be receiving a new message from the server, and without client requesting anything, again, that's the beauty of it, we should be able to see something on our browser. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So every 5 seconds we are receiving a message. This is awesome. We're able to now, without the client requesting anything to the server, we're able to send data from the server to our client, to the front end. And it's so easy that I honestly love Socket App for this reason. And if you're wondering how we are able to show the emails on the HTML, all I've done over here is I have a for loop. All I've done over here is I have a for loop that goes over all the emails one by one and simply prints out the sender and the message. So that's very straightforward, but I don't want to spend more time on HTML. So we'll focus on the main JavaScript and TypeScript part here. So this is good. This is working. As you can see, the server is working very hard, sending us new messages every 5 seconds. So I'm going to comment that out. We don't really want that. We have tested it. We have learned it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. Now, the next goal of this application is how to send a message from one client to all others, right? So this is going to involve some logic. The client, any client, will first emit a message. The server will receive the message and then will broadcast it to all others so that everyone can receive that chat message, that email message, that notification, whatever app you're building. I hope you get the idea. All right, so for now, I'm going to remove this, the initial part, and I'm going to say,
I don't know that.
Alexa, stop. Now what I'm going to do is, I have a method here, send random message. This method is called every time we click on the button. Right now, as you can see, we have nothing inside here. So let's add some logic over here. I'm going to say this dot socket dot emit. Now this time we're going to emit a message from here, and I'm going to say send event. right? I'm going to send an email, and that's why I'm naming it send event. Over here, again, we have to follow the same fundamentals. So I'll say the sender is name and message. Again, I'm going to use the Faker library here, faker.message. All right, let's go here. Let's refresh, send email. Let's see if something happens. Nothing really happens. Why? Because no one is listening to the event named send event. And that's what our server is going to do now. So I'm going to go to my server and set up the logic. I'm going to say socket.on. So now the server is listening to the events here. So I'm going to say whenever the send event happens, in that email, console.log it, just for testing purposes for now. Let's see if this works. Send email. There you go. Sender Zena, message connected, whatever random message, right? So this is the user Zena. Let's refresh. Now we are Ula. Let's refresh. Now we are Chelsea. And if I send the email now, the server should have received a message from Chelsea. This is awesome. As you can see here, let me remove myself if you weren't able to see it before. My bad. There you go. The user is Chelsea and it's saying sender Chelsea, message, blah, blah, blah. Let's try with another client, Valentina, send email. There you go. This is awesome. So our server is now able to receive emails, receive events. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to say resend this to all the clients except the one who sent the email. So let's say if Pranav sends an email, all others should receive it except Pranav, right? That's the logic behind emails. So let's set that up. So to achieve that complicated sounding logic, all we have to do here is on the server side, socket.broadcast.emit. Emit is a bit beautiful. What emit does is it will send the event to everyone except the one who sent it, right? So that's awesome. So if we have 50 clients and one client sent an event, the emit will make sure that that one client doesn't receive the message, all 49 others do receive it. So that's why it's out of the box. It's very, very awesome. And I really like Socket.io library. I've used it in many different companies already, right? So now I'm just going to resend that message to all the clients who are listening to the new email. And if I go to my client over here, they're already listening to the new email, right? So new email is something the server sends and the client listens to and pushes in my email array. And send random message is a send event that the client initiates in terms of, let's say, browser for now. Let's see if all of this is working. I'm going to refresh my applications. And we have Carson, we have Marty. I'm going to open another one. We have Andriane, right? So let's send the email. There you go, from Carson. Awesome. Let's send a message from Adrienne. There you go. Let's send a message now from Marty. Make sure it works. This received, and Carson also received a message from Marty. So this is so awesome, right? We don't know when we are going to receive a message, so let the server do the heavy lifting. The client will just listen to the events, and whenever the event happens, we will choose to do what we want. We can show it here, we can show notification, we can do whatever we want, but it's so easy. Socket.io, I really like it. Now there are more features. There are rooms, for example. They can be, let's say, chat groups so that only people in the group should receive a message, not others. Many more features that you can explore, but let me know in the comments down below if this cleared some of the things for you or not. And if it did, please consider subscribing and liking the video, sharing it to others if you think it will help others. Now the code is already in the description below, but before I go, I'm quickly going to go over all the code once more. I'm going to spend like 1 minute on it. I'm going to go over the code, give you a final summary overview of what sockets are and how we work. So in this case, when we are using sockets on the server side, our code is just about 10 lines. And all we have done is that whenever we have established the connection, I'm just printing some line. And all I'm saying is if we have a send event, so if an email is sent, I want to emit that email to all my clients. That's all we are doing here. On is used to listen to events and emit is used to send or create events, right? That's the server side. Going to the client, again, very, very straightforward. All we have done is whenever that button is clicked, this button over here, whenever this button is clicked, we emit an event. And remember, emit is for sending, for creating events. We emit an event with the name of the client and a random message. And over here, whenever our client starts, all we are doing is whenever there's an event called new email, add it to my list of emails and show it on the browser. which is something like this. So if we refresh, all that's happening over here is we have 3 random users. We have Fred, Salvador, and Ada. And if Ada sends a message, all others should receive it. Why? Because Ada did the send event and all others listened to the new email that was generated by the server over here. So I hope it makes sense. Again, let me know in the comment down below if it helped you. The link to all the code is in the description below, as I already mentioned. All the very best and see you in our next tutorial. Bye.